Hello and welcome to the Scholar Progenium. This week we've got a very exciting video for you as we finally reveal the new medium machine gun rules for version 3 of Bolt Action. So yes, this afternoon chaps, Warlord Games dropped their new rules update for the version 3 medium machine gun. And you don't need me to tell you lads, this one's been a long time coming. Now, maybe we should start off with the headline. Ding dong, the Stuart is dead. The reign of this little vehicle, I believe, will probably come to an abrupt end. Why, I hear you ask. No, I hear the British players scream. Well, let's dive right in and find out more. So first of all, we found out what a lot of us have suspected, but it's been confirmed, that medium machine guns have now got 6 shots. A very straightforward, simple update to the rule. Now they've dropped a whole small arms weapons table in the article. We'll be discussing pistols and so on later. But one thing I'd just mention right off the bat is that LMGs still only have 4 shots. Now, does this indicate to us a more nuanced yet much more streamlined at the same time edition of Bolt Action on the horizon? Could Warlord Games have achieved the holy grail of wargaming, which is a streamlined, easy to play, fast-paced game that also represents all the nuance of the theatre and background that the game is trying to represent or emulate, which in this case is, of course, World War II. Now, they've always said that their game is meant to represent World War II movies rather than World War II, and that's a fair point. But a lot of the changes that we've seen are allowing us to be more historical, and it's slowly tiptoeing from a casual World War II themed game into a much more professionally designed, nuanced game. And I really like that, and the reason why I'm saying this is because if you've been playing Bolt Action as long as me, in the update from 1st edition to 2nd edition, when, believe me, machine guns were really bad, and don't even talk about LMGs, they just slapped an extra shot on both of them. They're just like, both of them can have an extra shot. But this time it looks like they've taken a much more careful approach in the rules update. And we can kind of see that reflected when we played with the new platoons in our most recent battle report. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But essentially, it all seems to be coming together. Now, I don't want to get too sidetracked on that point, but it just seems like the omens are positive so far, and I'll leave it at that because we've still so much more to find out, of course. Now, the next step is very, very interesting, and there's actually a lot of devil in the detail here. So, they've halved the number of shots when the weapon system is attached to a vehicle, and they give their historical based reasons for this, again sort of signalling that they're evolving Bolt Action into a more historical war game, saying that they didn't have decent sights on these weapons, didn't have decent viewing angles, they were nowhere near as accurate, and to represent that they're just halving the number of shots. And again, they're wanting to streamline the shooting rules, so a tip of the cap to them for sure, because imagine streamlining the shooting rules and then adding in new special rules to unstreamline them again. So great move on that point, just halving the number of dice when attached to a vehicle. And this is a big deal. This is why I say maybe the Stuart is dead, because with an LMG only not having an upgrade, the Stuart will now receive 10 shots, 2 for each LMG, 3 for the coaxial, 3 for the whole mounted. If you stick a pintle mounted on there, you can get him up to 13 shots. But essentially 10 shots, well, that is the same as a standard medium tank of Bolt Action 2nd edition. It's enough to give some infantry a decent bruising, enough to make them think about getting their heads down. But you can't just ride around slaughtering masses of infantry when, of course, an isolated tank without infantry support, as we know, is very vulnerable to being sort of cut off and attacked by infantry if the infantry have the proper equipment. So I think, I love my Stuart, don't get me wrong, but that gets 2 thumbs up from me. Now, it does get interesting, and I can already see Bo fuming over this one. I'm joking, of course, but his British list has really suffered from this because bikes, his cheap MGs, I've got a couple of them myself for my Germans. Who doesn't love an MG wielding bike flying around the battlefield, 40 points I think they are, spewing out those shots, a bargain even in 2nd edition. Now if these were getting 6 shots in 3rd edition, ayo, we're on to a winner. But no, these are now only getting 3 shots as far as we're aware. And so, the bikes, they're probably going to be going on the shelf for a little while. And I bought actual metal bikes. These are not 3D printed. These guys, my bike squad, cost me a pretty penny. So that's not good news for me, but it is what it is. Another side note to this is that HMGs remain functionally the same in that we know they got 6 shots, a big boost, but as you mainly find them on vehicles, they're going to retain 3 shots at a pen plus 1 versus 6 shots, or I guess 3 shots not at a pen plus 1. Now that means HMG wielding vehicles are going to be better, or vehicles that can upgrade their machine guns to heavy machine guns or add them on sponsons and so on and so forth, are going to be quite valuable because they're going to have the penetration value that a normal coaxial or hull-mounted machine gun won't have. So I can see those vehicles getting a little boost. And of course, the big winners here are the US players. This is a big change for them, being able to take those, and I think maybe Soviets as well. You don't see them very often, but anyone who can take a heavy machine gun in a heavy weapons team, they've got a big boost here. They can now take 3, 5, as many heavy machine gun squads as they like at 6 shots a pop, pen plus 1, as far as we know. That seems essentially like the rules for machine guns. So HMG is a big winner. Another question we want to ask ourselves, has the German rule changed? Are national rules changing? Is this another clue towards that? Because German rules would be 6 shots up to 7 shots. Maybe they get 8 shots now. Maybe they get 4 shots, because... Sorry, I'm not explaining myself very well because I've just rushed home from work and turned the camera on, got the mic plugged in, and I'm away. Trying to get you guys this news hot off the press, so to speak. So, yeah, have the German rules changed? Because they would have 7 shots, halving 7 shots. Do you round it up to 4 shots? Does that give the German vehicles an edge, as they should have? They're packing the superior armour in many cases. They're packing the superior firepower in many cases in terms of their main armament. And now they're packing the superior firepower in that, for example, the Panzer 3F, which gets 2 coaxial machine guns and 1 on the hull, or the other way around, something like that. It's getting still 12 shots off those 3 machine guns. I believe. Yes, it'd be getting 12 shots if it had a coaxial machine gun as well. So the Germans have a little more firepower there. Normal medium tanks, just any old tank that's just got a coaxial and a hull mounted, they're down to 6 shots. 6 shots. That's nothing. That's a tickle. So we know the shooting rules are going to change. And if you haven't seen it, as I mentioned, we did play test the rules for the platoons in our most recent battle report, and we tried out taking away the cover modifiers from the shooting phase and putting them into a cover save instead, just because we've seen that cover saves are going to be part of 3rd edition. We have seen that, so we kind of guesstimated. and we were getting a lot more hits on target. And so maybe 6 shots is all medium tanks need, but that means that, you know, combined, they're just really going to be relying on that main gun for killing infantry. And again, that makes US players and British players, basically anyone who can lend lease, that makes allied players, again, having a boon, because they can look on their medium tanks with their medium anti-tank guns, and of course you can put 2 or 3, 4 in the list now. They can fire that 2-inch template, which means they can get a cheap, high explosive wielding, survivable unit that's still effective against infantry. So this is looking like a big win for the Allies. And competitive players out there, they're already well aware that the Allies are generally superior on the competitive scene. Soviets, Brits, they do better. Germans, not so much. Italians, you know, had a rising star in the tail end of 2nd edition with Operation Blue Rules. But, you know, all bets are off now, as we know, so we don't know how that's going to turn out. But the Axis are going to need some big boosts in some ways, although, you know, again, as we've mentioned, the German tanks especially, you know, they may have a couple of extra shots on their Dakar, but do they really need it? They also have the better guns. This bad boy, the Panther, with his super heavy anti-tank gun, he can put out a 3-inch template as far as we know. And that, you know, again, leads me on to the next question. Is this all a moot point? What is even happening to vehicles right now? We can take more than we know that much. Are they going to get cheaper? This is a big nerf to vehicles. I'm seeing some point reductions in the future, but we have got 1,250 points. Again, it was very useful playtesting the new platoon selectors at 1,250 points because it gave us a real feel. And that sized army seemed right. JP ran a vehicle heavy force and it felt right at 1,250. I ran a support weapons and artillery platoon and that felt right at 1,250. So my gut reaction after that game was that points are going to not see too many drastic changes. I think we're going to see some nuance. I don't think every weapons team's basically going to be 50 points now. You know, you might have some at 45 points, some at 55 points. And just the lay of the land seems like things are becoming a little more nuanced. And, you know, the vehicles are really up in the air. That's just one thing to take away. Really, really up in the air. I feel like they're getting, you know, you can take a lot of them, but maybe Warlord games there, and I'm thinking about this on the fly here, but Warlord games, as they've said and underlined and reiterated and highlighted, and they could not have repeated this as any more or made this any more clear to us, that they are making Bolt Action 3rd Edition very much an infantry game. And when we all saw these platoon selectors, we were thinking, well, that's all well and good, sir, but I can now take 10 Stuarts, I can now take all these vehicles, I can now take all these howitzers, I can now take all these machine guns, etc., etc. So it's starting to form a picture. The pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall into place, and we're getting a better perspective here. And we can start to try and speculate and guesstimate with a bit more accuracy. And my gut is telling me right now that things like artillery, things like high explosives, you know, Warlord, they're not afraid, it seems, going into 3rd edition, to get out the Nerf gun, to start bringing a few sort of legendary units. No one calls it the Stuart, they call it the Dakar Stuart a lot of the time. I see people call it that anyway. So, you know, the Dakar Stuart, dethroned. Okay, maybe vehicles, maybe HE is going to be dethroned. Let me know what you think. What are the portents telling you? What have the oracles whispered to you in the comment section down below? And later on in the video, we'll have a look at some of the comments from the previous video where we got the platoons one, because I said we'd reconvene and I'd discuss some of the comments that you guys posted. And there's been some real insights out there. So I think it's important that we discuss those. So shout out to all the previous commenters. And we'll keep this gravy train rolling. Why not? Get your comments down below, boys. And, if anyone's making some interesting points, next week, next Wednesday, we'll flick through them, give you a shout out. Give you the glory you deserve for your big brain ideas. However, chaps, the big news does not end there. The Warlords still have a couple more bangers in this reveal for us. And essentially, although there are changes to the MG team, they ask questions about other units, it has to be said. So what they've said is there is no longer an exceptional damage rule. Now, they didn't say machine guns don't have the exceptional damage rule. They specified very clearly that the exceptional damage and small team rules no longer exist. And I'm quoting them there. No longer exist. So, I've got my sniper here, of course. We'll talk about him in a second. Now, that's a lot of streamlining. And that actually sort of takes away from the nuance of the game. Because taking away exceptional damage means you can't, for example, if your opponent has conga lined their units, you can't, and then in a nice bit of cover, you can't shoot that guy, take him away and force them to advance next turn to give them a -1 to their return fire, because they'll have to, with their next activation, activate that unit if they can, and give it an advance order, a move order, to a run order to get it back in position. So that rule's gone now. You can't pick your models anymore. And that is a big Easter egg. That's a big news drop right there. Also means you can't mess with artillery. And it also means that things like mortar teams getting wiped out in one shot, machine gun teams getting wiped out in one shot, all of that gone. That no longer exists. No taking NCOs out. No killing LMG gunners. We don't know what the shooting rules are going to be, but I cannot wait for next week when they reveal the shooting rules. And if you have not subscribed to the channel at this point, make sure you do, because we are going to be releasing updates hot off the press every week for you guys. Save your eyes. You work hard. Okay, you've got a tough life, Sit back, relax, have a brew. Let me tell you about the rules. You don't need to read the articles. Leave it to me, guys. So subscribe. Hit that like button, it really helps the channel out. Now, exceptional damage, gone. Small teams advantage, gone. Now, the small teams rule getting deleted, not a big deal, nor a massive surprise. We knew they were streamlining the shooting rules, and if it were down to me, the first rule to get the chop there, the one that people forget, it's not that necessary. You can make officers bigger now, which is another sort of thread to this this rules drop. You can just simply make your officers 3-man teams to make them more survivable now. You don't have to be like, oh, they're more survivable because they're 2 or 1-man teams, so a small team. Just cuts out the chaff. Let's make the shooting rules more streamlined. Let's get on with more activations. Let's fire more howitzers. Let's use more weapons and have more fun. Now, the next thing is that, of course, all of this combined together to basically say that snipers, they're going to have a rules change as well. Because if exceptional damage doesn't work anymore, then snipers have just been nerfed. And snipers didn't need a nerf. They're not that great. You take a sniper, and you take a veteran sniper, because if you take a regular sniper, the other guy's definitely going to have a veteran sniper and kill your regular sniper. And then he's going to kill your mortar, and of course everything falls apart and you lose the game. I'm joking, of course. But snipers, you've kind of got to have one. Can't live with them, can't live without them. The curse of the sniper, we call it on this channel. A lot of the time, they're not doing much, unless you're the Finnish sniper. Now, as a Finn player, as a partisan player, this rules drop, it's making me look at my beloved minor factions. I've got the Germans, I've got the Brits, but I love my Finns, love my new partisans that I've just spent the last 6 months building and painting. And I'm really, really excited for my new Finnish army. It's going to be Finns how they're supposed to be. Tons of artillery, tons of machine gun, tons of ambushing infantry, say no more. Vehicles, don't need them, don't want them. So I'm excited for my Finns, but my Finnish sniper is in many ways the archetype of the entire army. So if he gets nerfed, I'll be greatly disappointed, and I'm just going to say that right now. That won't get 2 thumbs up from me. I'm very excited about version 3. Loving basically everything Warlord have done so far, but please, please, please don't ruin snipers for me, because I love my Finnish sniper very dearly. Now, let's move on from machine guns for a second. We'll come back to them. And let's talk a little bit about the other small arms rules. Now, this chap here, I only ever painted up 12, maybe 14 pistoliers for my partisans. And boy, oh boy, am I glad that I didn't spam 5 squads of 20 inexperienced pistoliers. You know who you are. Because, they've not got assault anymore. Assault has been taken away from pistols. If you want assault, you're going to need to get it in the form of a Sten gun, an MP40, an SMG of some variety, and of course, an assault rifle. Those 2 weapon systems are the only 2 remaining weapon systems that we've seen in the small arms that have the assault rule. Not that that means anything at this point. What even is the assault rule going to be? But yes, long story short, hordes of pistoliers are no longer going to be viable. Not that anyone could be bothered to build and paint them, but that's another story. So overall, guys, if you were wondering my opinion on the changes, well, I think overall I'm pretty happy. You see, I've been a proponent of an extra shot for MGs. I didn't feel an extra pin was necessarily the right direction to go. Although it works perfectly well as a rule. It's then like asking the questions, well, if machine guns do 2 pins or D2 pins, autocannon should do more pins than that. And then, it's a whole other ball game. So, and I've always thought just a couple of extra shots would probably do the trick since first edition, and now we've arrived at that. We started on 4 shots from a medium machine gun, now we're on 6, and I think, yes, good. In terms of the changes to vehicles, it's still all up in the air. We don't know how the shooting rules work. We don't know if we'll even have armour facings. I've played a fair bit of Achtung Panzer here and there, where one of the best rule additions is that they have separate armour facings for the turret and the chassis. So if you're defending a position and you've got your turret facing this way and your machine gun facing that way, and a tank comes from your front and shoots you and they hit the turret, they get the side armour value. Now, perhaps that'll be a more nuanced element to vehicles. Now, the next question, the next thing I'm excited about, one might say, something that comes to mind is, are autocannons going to be in Ascendant? No, not ones like the Bofors, although try and stop me from running 8 Bofors in version 3 at some point. But what I'm talking about is the autocannon tank. Now, we haven't seen the autocannon rules. Let's presume they stay the same, or they retain the same number of shots. They get the same or better. Okay, let's say it's that. Now, you're looking at your machine gun here. Now, let's say he's got 6 shots between him. This guy has 4 shots, and he's pen +1, and he's got a superior range, and he's got an HE template at pen +1 as well. He's pen +2, pen +1 on his HE template. So, the Crusader Mark II, Mark III AA, Crusader 2 Mark III AA, to be precise, Crusader 3 Mark II AA, my apologies. Oh, I don't even know, guys. I'm mixing it up. Criticise me in the comment section. Lambast me, if you will. But this bad boy, Setso, our first legendary member, the first intrepid YouTube subscriber to ever take the leap into joining this channel and supporting us, and massive shout out to him. He drives this vehicle. When we run this vehicle on the bolt action battle reports on the Sundays, he spiritually runs this vehicle. This Crusader belongs to him. I just have it here to run games with it, essentially. Shout out to Setso. So, Could this beauty, this beast, be in ascendant? Could we be seeing lots of Opel Blitz flak Verlings for the Germans? You know, why not 8 autocannon shots? It's just because vehicle-mounted machine guns are now not very good, frankly. What about dedicated machine gun wagons? Okay, so they've said that those vehicles are still going to be great at flak, and they are designed for flak. I can't remember what they're called, but the sort of 4 Soviet machine gun truck, 4 medium machine gun Soviet truck. There's loads of them out there where they just strap 4 machine guns onto a pickup, basically. OG technicals for the win. Now, they weren't designed, they're perfectly capable of engaging ground units, but they were designed to protect ground units against air attack, and they maintain all of their shots against planes. So if you've got an M16 meat chopper for your Americans with a load of heavy weapon, well, I guess that one doesn't count, but if you've got like a machine gun truck, it still is great against planes. You're still going to get 20 shots against a plane, but now you're only going to get 10 shots against infantry. Now, that might still be good. We don't know the shooting rules. That might still be good, but it's not 20 shots, is it? Let's face it. So your dedicated Dakar wagons, which were essentially brought exclusively for engaging infantry and ground targets, they're not going to be anywhere near as viable anymore. However, take a flak Verling, bit more expensive, admittedly, but now you've got 2 less shots than the machine gun version, but it's all at pen plus 2 within half range. It's all 1-inch templates. You can just rinse stuff. And I really, really love autocannons. Like, they are one of my go-to weapons. I feel like they don't get enough credit. I'm a big proponent of them. From heavy autocannons to light autocannons, especially heavies, but light autocannons great too. So if we see a load of autocannons come in, you're going to see a happy scholar running a lot of autocannons. Sweet. But long story short, going into version 3, there's one thing we can be sure of. If you want Dakar in your list, and you want lots of Dakar, then the only way you're going to get that is with the mighty medium machine gun team. The machine gun tank is dead. Long live the machine gun team. And I believe that is the way it should be. Overall, whatever the losses, whatever the casualties amongst my own collection, for a long, long time, over a decade, I don't even know how long I've been playing this game, but since first edition, for the longest time, machine guns have been missing from the battlefield. There should be 3, 5 on the battlefield, minimum, okay? Now we're going to be seeing lines of machine guns. We're going to see them in nests. We're going to see them dug into little bits of buildings just everywhere. You would stick a machine gun nest. There is going to be a machine gun using that machine gun nest, and that is great to me. I'm just absolutely buzzing. So, awesome. Another point on weapons teams is that, of course, we saw it in the platoon selector. You can now take a heavy weapons team per rifle platoon. For heavy weapons platoons, you can put a big old 3 heavy weapons teams in there, such as the bazooka or the Panzerschreck. Now, that's you're going to need them, because without the small team rule, if these guys don't get some kind of other protective tech, one might say, another little buff to the rules in some other way that makes them more survivable, then these guys are going to be just as easy to kill, well, way easier to kill than an infantry team. And they're going to be less powerful against tanks, but then are tanks getting a nerf? So these rightfully need a nerf. You've got so many anti-tank options. Your tanks haven't got the machine guns they have anymore, so they can't just sort of grit their teeth, drive straight up to this bazooka team at point blank, rinse him up, force the bazooka down. If the bazooka grits its teeth, defo losing that guy, even if it's veteran, no doubt, probably both dead. The Stuart can't do that anymore. No tank can do that anymore. So they're going to be more vulnerable to those weapons teams. But then weapons teams, I guess, have been nerfed. So it's all, as I said before, kind of tying together. But yeah, you're going to need those weapons teams. Are the points going to drop on them? Who knows? Just more questions than answers with this release. Another unit that comes to mind that may fall from grace is, of course, the mighty Puma, guys. Now, the Puma, beloved of many sneaky German players. They love that recce rule. They love that medium anti-tank gun. Now, he can still do that. No one's ever really taken him for the machine gun, considering it's coaxial and you don't have a hull mounted. But now he's got 3 shots with a machine gun. He's like, I don't even know what the shooting rules are going to be, but 3 shots on a coaxial weapon, that's bad. And that is the case for a lot. Like British armoured cars, are they going to die a death? Is the Staghound now the only armoured car worth taking? Because the Humber, all of those, they only get a coaxial machine gun. They don't get one on the hull. So with 3 shots, they really going to struggle to defend themselves against infantry, regardless of what the shooting rules. 3 dice just isn't that many dice. So armoured cars, they're going to have to dash away. They're going to have to be more sneaky. No using a double MMG armoured car to bully infantry anymore, that's for sure. So there's a lot of casualties to this. A lot of units seem to get a nerf. A lot of unit types seem to get a nerf. Whole categories of unit seem to be getting a nerf with this release. So there's a lot of questions here. We really, really need to see those shooting rules. Now, to wrap up the video, I just want to have a look at a few of the comments from the last video, and a big shout out to everyone who's getting involved in the discussion, sharing, watching the video, liking it. The community's really sort of getting pumped about version 3. So let's just have a look what you guys are saying, because some interesting points out there. Now, we'll start off with Finnish Wolf Brigade. He's one of our long-time members, so shout out to him. And he says that he's got mixed feelings. He's a little filled with trepidation because he prefers to only have to do minor updates to his armies. And I think we all agree there, especially the more armies you have, if you have Brits and Germans and a couple of minor factions, because you've been playing a while, you're going to have to update all of those armies. But I think, just don't glue your crews onto your mortar bases, that kind of thing. And yeah, maybe invest in a couple more mortars, a couple more howitzers. But weapons were captured, weapons changed hands throughout the war. There's nothing wrong with using a British medium howitzer alongside a German medium howitzer on either side of the Allies or Axis dynamic. So there are going to be some tricks there and ideas that we can come up with. So we're not buying 5 German howitzers, 5 British howitzers. And I don't think Warlord would expect that either. I remember back in first edition in the rulebook, they literally had in like the introduction to the game, I don't know if it's in the second, that use whatever models. Don't even need to use ours. It's just, this is a set of World War II rules. Thanks for buying the book kind of deal. Dice Ghost, keeping it simple. Shout out to Greg, our buddy. He says that awesome. Looking forward to 3rd edition. Straightforward enough. And, go check his new channel out if you haven't already. Next, we have Mr. Prater. He's saying, gonna need a lot more officers. I think that's a really interesting point. I think officers are gonna change a lot, and I think with the nuance that they've been adding, maybe with points changes, maybe you'll pay for weapons on officers now instead of just that blanket. You get them for free because reasons. And on top of that, are we going to see 3-man teams? Are the French getting a little buff because 3-man team? Well, not a buff, but they'll be better than other people because they can take intelligence officers and other armies that can sort of get it up to a 4-man squad. Then you've got a decent squad. Take a veteran officer's 4-man squad and you're cracking, right? One person, Caleb Fisher, Can't wait to take a veteran King Tiger with an inexperienced command motorcycle and sidecar, lol. I love that, Caleb. Yeah, great point. You know, there's going to be some crazy janky combos out there. And, you know, that extra 250 points, if the points don't shift too much and you basically get the extra 250 to play with more toys, and because you've got more officers, more snap twos or something, you know, the game just still seems very dynamic, streamlined shooting phase, all of that. Does that mean that 250 points is just going to basically be a bonus, in which case slap it on a veteran King Tiger? Why not treat yourself? Take the veteran King Tiger. You've always wanted to. We've got various people just pointing out the engineer rules, and we just always respect and shout out to those people who just add to the conversation, you know, clarify things, pull information from other areas of the internet and bring it to our discussion on the channel. You know, shout out to all of you guys. Anthony Sauls said the speculation on spamming stuff is probably an overreaction. Think about it. If you take 10 mortars, that along with 2 officers is presumably going to be around 700 points. In that case, you better hope those mortars absolutely devastate, because if you didn't, you lose. And yeah, just great point. We can take some crazy stuff. I tried a mixed bag list with the new platoon selector and just playing a game with the rules that we know. And it was very, you know, fine. It was great. You know, the officer attacks didn't matter too much and everything just worked together. Yeah, I could have taken 8 tanks, but that just, when I was putting the list down, just didn't seem as good. You know, 10 mortars didn't seem as good. Although one thing I would say is that inexperienced teams seem great. Just taking like a heavy weapons platoon of inexperienced, just having 5 base of machine guns, just 30 shots. Who cares what the shooting rules are? Who cares what the veterancy rules are? Surely that's got to be good. Especially considering, I think, you know, and this is just me waffling now, that all the old heroes are being replaced, so to speak. All the historically powerful OP cheese units are being replaced by sort of new, more interesting units, you could say. So is that just going to continue? You know, something to consider. Moving on, I'm just flicking through here, so I'm very sorry if I miss your comment. One person's gone 4 flat Anthony Przetwich, and I'm sorry that I've definitely pronounced your name wrong, but he said 4 flak, 37, 88 millimeters, 5 exclamation marks. He's very excited. Nice. That was how he finished his comment. Yeah, I can see that being actually genuinely good and not even unhistoric. You know, battery of flak howitzers, whoever's attacking them, they've been told to, you know, get around the side. They've already done a penetrating mission, so to speak, and they're attacking that flak team, or they could be covering a road. You know, classic Fury scene where they're attacking the dug-in gun positions with the Sherman platoon. That's like definitely happening in a lot of games, isn't it? So not actually a stupid list, and just really, really cool and fun. And just imagine the power, the raw power of 488. Amazing. Hyperlord B agrees with him. He goes, is this the dawn of 88 spam? Stefan Wolf speculates that the mandatory units will be cheaper in points than the optionals. And then there's a bit of back and forth discussion there. JP got involved and he says he's looking forward to taking a ton of T-34s with the spare points. Now, Jurga keeps a little more wary eye on things. He says it's the Games Workshop mindset surfacing with 3rd edition. Final comment I want to mention is from Dario's Tabletop Miniatures. If you're a player based in Germany, definitely go and check out his channel, as he's based in Germany. Now, he's got a lot to say. He's looking forward to the mortar spam. He doesn't criticise Warlord for wanting to sell minis. You know, it's okay to sell minis as long as you give us interesting, more fun to go along with that. We're in the business of buying minis. It's not like you're just going to go, oh, well, that's me done. That's my Wargaming collection. I can set down my paintbrush and yeah, I'm happy. That's just, you know, let's face it. Let's take a long, hard look in the mirror here, guys. You're buying more models. Most of us are buying different factions, and we've just racked up a ton of factions because we want to try new things. Now Warlord are mixing it up and giving us loads of new things to try. So I think that's, you know, a really great point. That it's, you know, we should just be excited for it. Why not? And then basically he's just pumped because he says that he feels like 3rd edition is going to be like the old PC game Sudden Strike, which I'm sure a lot of us were thoroughly addicted to back in the day. Shout out to Dario, and thank you for the extra support joining as a member, bro. We really appreciate it. We've been enjoying our discussions in the comment section for months, probably over a year now, so it's really good to have you as part of the team. So finally, I just want to say, make sure you get involved in the discussion. We want to hear your thoughts, and we'll reconvene, gentlemen. Next meeting set for this time next Wednesday. There's been a lot of tidbits, a lot of tiny details. The devil's in the detail with this release. You know, it's not just simply MMGs get an extra shot, and I've just put this video out as quick as possible for you guys so you can listen to it on your drive home or whatever. So let me know what I've missed. What are the other winners and losers? What are you speculating on? Are you rage quitting the game, or are you even more pumped for the next set of releases and 3rd edition as a whole? So I hope you found this video interesting and entertaining. This has been the Scholar Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.